So I spoke about in the blog that you can read below that mindfulness and doing a lot of these mind-body practices can really help with weight loss indirectly, where if we become more aware of our emotions, our feelings, stress, that we can actually interrupt things like binge eating and making poor nutritional choices. Plus, downregulating our nervous system will help us prevent things like excessive cortisol release, which can negatively impact our weight loss goals. It can make us have more inflammatory processes going on, which can cause more aches and pains that can obviously detract from our training. We also can have problems sleeping. So again, these practices also have been helpful for improving insomnia and other issues, which also correlate to improved fat loss. So we're going to go over a few ways we can do this with our Myofascial Integrated Movement program. So what we're going to do is start with something easy, a lot of breathing exercises. So we're just going to do this, and again, when you're doing this in practice, if you're doing this yourself, you can do this several different times. If you're doing this with a new client, you may just want to introduce it with one set. You can do about 10 breaths. You can go up to 20 breaths if you want, depending upon how well they receive some of these exercises. If you have a client that you know, hey, they don't have the mentality for this, don't worry. We're going to address that with some other drills that you can utilize as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my feet about hip width apart. I'm going to sink down to my feet, so I'm going to relax my feet, and I'm going to be rooting in the ground. I want to imagine my feet are going into the ground really deep, but then I'm going to relax my low back and allow my sternum to relax as well. My arms are going to be in the front of my body. I'm going to relax my arms. I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose, also putting my tongue to the roof of my mouth, which will activate some deep core stabilizers as well, which will help with mobility. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about a string being brought up by my wrists, and I'm going to breathe in. As I push through my feet, go about chest height, my legs extend, and then exhale and push down. So I like to imagine there's a balloon filling up in front of my body, and then pushing all the air out of the balloon. Inhale and exhale. So you may think like, hey, I've seen this in kind of Tai Chi movements, and yes, Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga are all meditative movement systems, but what we've done is kind of twist them a little bit to serve people that aren't going to dig deep into those practices, because they're awesome practices, but not everyone's going to get into them. Now that's also why we're using our mobility balls. So these are only about 2 pounds right now, because I don't want such a weight that becomes a front raise with my shoulder. I still want to be weightless, but now this gives me a little feedback of how to make the weight weightless by using my breath. So I want to imagine the breath is coming up my body and then back down. So that's why the front wave works really well. So it's almost following the path of my breath, and I can use imagery to focus on breathing in with expanding the balloon and breathing out, pushing the balloon collapsed. Now, because we want to optimize our breath, also increase core stability, which means I want my breath eventually to get more 360 degree in my torso, because that's where all those deep intrinsic core stabilizers, your diaphragm, your multifidus, your transverse abdominis, your pelvic floor all come into play. We're going to also go laterally. So now what's going to happen is my arms come out. I'm still going to float them out, but I'm going to think about lateral expansion of my breath. And then exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. So these are great starting points. Again, nervous system regulation, getting some deep core stabilizers going, which will again help some of the intrinsic muscles that will impede our mobility in our hips and our shoulders. Also, again, gaining focus and energy too. A lot of times when people are really worked up, they feel chronically fatigued, and so this is going to actually help them be more focused for their workout. So what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to do some progressions of these movements that you can utilize, and you're going to see how we can use exercise as part of this in our MIM system. So I know there's a lot of coaches out there that want to use these strategies with their clients, but their clients are coming in to work out. If they feel like they're not working, then they're not going to really buy into what they're doing. So we can actually sneak some of this stuff into our clients in different ways. Here's a couple of different ways we can sneak in kind of this nervous system regulation, this mindfulness, also while making them feel like they're working a bit. So what we're going to do is get in a horse stance position. So kind of looks like you're riding a horse. So how do we do that? We're going to put our feet together, Heels go out, that's 1. Toes go out, that's 2. Heels go out, that's 3. Toes go out, that's 4. Heels go out, that's 5. So this is about where we want to be with our feet slightly turned out. If we need to modify coming in closer, we can definitely do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about sinking to my feet again, pushing my knees out in that same direction, pulling from my hips to get as low as I get comfortable. Now, obviously, as you're fatigued, you're not going to be able to get as low. So if you're a beginner, start higher up. If you're more advanced, you can go lower to the ground. So we're going to do the same concept where our arms are going to float out, but now we're also going to get deeper in the position with our lower body, so we have to really optimize that breath. So I'm going to come down nice and tall. I don't want to be sitting back. I'll be nice and tall, arms crossed. I'm going to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. I can make this more difficult by going higher up. Breathe in, out. So that's going to challenge more of my core stability. It's going to also focus more on my breath. I can come up. I can come down to the middle. In, out. In, out. So there's lots I can do from that position, but after people do that for 10, 15 repetitions, they're definitely going to feel like they're working. So it's a great way to introduce the concept of, hey, I'm going to be exercising, but we're going to do some other stuff to improve you that you may come in more subtle ways. Another way we can apply this is if I get into what's called a bow stance position. So if you imagine someone drawing a bow, that's where the name kind of comes from. And this is really great too. If people have a hard time lunging, they can get into this position. It's even easier than a split squat and allows us a lot of versatility. So what I'm going to do is my hips are going to be in line. I take a big step back. Now both feet are flat, but this foot is turned out about 45 degrees. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start my weight forward. Arms are going to be soft. I'm going to take a deep breath in. So I'm shifting my weight back, bringing the arms down, and I'm going to exhale as I shift my weight forward. In and out. In and out. In and out. So that's a really nice way too. Again, we can do this for 10 to 15 repetitions each side, and people are going to not only feel like they're working, they're going to improve hip mobility, core stability. We're getting that nervous system regulation. We're teaching movement efficiency. We're teaching how to use the ground to move myself around. So there's so many great benefits we're getting in relatively simple drills. Over time, we can build more dynamic movement by using what we call silk reeling. So this is borrowed from Tai Chi, but it's a great way to teach mobility through the entire connect chain. So we're back in that horse stance. I'm going to shift weight to one side so that one hip closes, one hip opens. I'm going to shift back, open and close, shift, open and close. So I'm pushing back and forth with my feet as I go through the movement. And I want to stay really relaxed. And the more relaxed I get, I can go deeper and deeper into the position. So this becomes almost meditative movement, even though you're working really hard on the lower body, you're improving that hip mobility, you're getting ankle mobility all at the same time, while core stability to make sure that you're not over moving in the exercise. Now the way we can utilize this is in a couple different ways. So we can start with the balls by my hips, and when I go shift weight, I can push one out, pull it in as I shift back, push out the other side. Pull in, push out. Pull in, push out. So once I understand, I'm going to take a deep breath in, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. That's one great way. Another is to kind of use lift and chop concepts of diagonal motion. So when we use diagonal motions, we know the hip, core, and shoulders are all connected, so we can actually start to train a little bit more functionally because we're these giant spiral lines, so we want to train some of those in our movement. So again, we can start here, and when I shift, now I'm just coming up and like I'm serving the ball up. I'm going to pull it down, shift, go the other way. Deep breath in, deep breath out. So I'm not overreaching and I'm not losing my upright torso. The deeper I go, the more difficult this becomes. But these are some ways that you can increase meditative movement into your mindfulness training, which again, you're training, you're building metabolic conditioning, you're building strength, you're building mobility, but you're also building mental skills and nervous system regulation that will carry over out into other times in the world. So you can teach people that, hey, next time you're craving that drink that you don't really want to take because you're stressed out, or you find yourself going for food because you're really stressed out, just pause for a moment, take that breath and be aware of what you're feeling, and then maybe do something better, make a different choice in what you're doing. So again, it's a way to sort of break the cycle that a lot of people have habitually by using exercise in ways to get them aware of what's happening internally. So these are great ancient practices we're just putting a modern twist to for a lot of people that really need our help and could really benefit from what these skills teach them.